All right. We're here with the Chief of Ypsilanti. Thank you for joining me, sir. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on to Breathe Live. I really appreciate that. We're going to jump right into it. Was law enforcement always a field you wanted to pursue, or did you want to do something else at first?
Right. So I've never wanted really to do anything else. This was
Hmm.
always my dream to do this job. And I've been really lucky to be able to do it for, almost the last 35 years. Um, so I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it every step of the way from when I first started all the way to where I'm at now. Uh,
Hmm.
and yeah, I've been blessed to be able to do something that I love for my whole career.
Yeah. And how many years you been um, police officer?
This will be my 35th year.
35th year? Hey, it's good to enjoy it. You know what I mean? It's good to enjoy the job because I tell you, it's a lot of people that go to work every day and be miserable. You know what I mean? It feels like work, but your job don't feel like work because it's something that you love to do, and that's a good thing. All right. Next question. What's been your experience with race relations within Ypsilanti? Have the people within the city expressed they have dealt with explicit racism from the police force here in Ypsi?
So I think there's a historical perspective to this and a
Hmm.
more recent perspective. Uh, I don't get um, a lot of feedback from the community that there's a racial problem within the community and the police department. I
Okay.
know that there have been some issues in the past. I don't know the very specifics of those things because I wasn't here. I didn't do my whole career here. I've only been here 8 years. So I, I, I think that in a broader sense, you have to be sensitive to things that have happened, but you also have to pay attention to what's happening now.
Hmm.
So, yeah, is it an area that we need to work on? I think it's something that everyone needs to work on all the time. And I think when we really examine things um, at a much more personal level, as opposed to categorically saying police officers are this and this group is this and this group is this, if we break it down and we start talking to each other, I think you'll see that the things that we have in common far exceed the things that separate us.
Yeah, I know one of the things we mentioned when I met you at one of the protests, and I remember one of the things you said about sitting across the table and sitting down and really having a discussion on how we can make things better. With the exact thing, I was able to come to you and we was able to talk and get some things ironed out. And I mean, I love the fact that you took time out. I really respected that. Because a lot of people say, yeah, come on by, we can talk, but you go by there, they're not there, or what I mean, whatever the case was. But you stuck with your word, and I always respected that. So that's something I always wanted to tell you, man. I always respected that from you.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think that everybody talks a lot about things in kind of the broader sphere of things. Police and community trust and all these other things. I think that really, I mean, you really can't have a program that says, "Oh, we're going to do this program. We're going to build community trust."
Hmm.
Those things happen one person at a time, one commitment at a time, one handshake at a time, one kept promise, one problem solved, and those things build over time. And so, you know, the the impression that we can have some kind of program or something that's a script where we're going to gain community trust. I don't think that really exists. I think that's something that happens day to day to day.
Hmm. Next question. What policies or training, if any, are in place to ensure that police officers are equipped with the skills and knowledge to handle tense situations?
Right. So that's a huge question. We could use the whole rest of the interview for this, but I can tell you that we do a lot of training. Um, I'm very blessed that the city provides an adequate amount of training dollars
Hmm.
because the state certainly has not stepped up to the plate and done what I feel is their fair share of providing funding for training. But we've done just this past year fair and impartial policing, implicit bias. Um, you know, we've got program that we're running through. It's a movie called Walking While Black. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah, I heard of it.
Okay, so we're out in the community watching this. In fact, just last week, Officer Tate and I were with a group of youth over at Gil Wolkoff's place, and we had a meal with them. We watched the movie. We had some discussion afterwards, and I think doing those kinds of things really moves the needle in opening up those lines of communication. Right? I mean, we often talk about having conversations,
right?
But I think the important piece is to not only have conversations, but have meaningful conversations. Things, it's not the window dressing kind of things that you see sometimes. But let's have the hard conversation. Let's talk about things, because when you start putting things like race, police, authority, use of force, and you pack that all into a conversation, some people are going to feel some kind of way about some of those things, right?
Every time.
And the perspective is going to be different from depending on what seat you're in. So if we're going to come to some understanding, we're going to have those talks. And we may not agree at the end, and that's fine. But we at least have to understand where each other are coming from. And then maybe at some point, we'll be able to have some expectations of what our encounters are going to be like, right? So you understand my perspective, I'll understand yours. If we're a little sideways when we meet, we'll kind of be able to negotiate our way through that, right? Without something going bad. So, that to me is really the important piece.
Talking about as far as, you hear people say cops, bad apples, different things of this nature. What is your take on that? I mean, for my take, I feel as though in any field, you're going to have bad, you're going to have good. But what are you doing as far as a chief in Ypsilanti to make sure the best way possible to weed out those bad apples?
Right. So I agree with you. In any situation, I don't care if it's, whatever occupation you want to pick.
Right.
There's going to be people that are there for the right reasons, people not there for the right reasons. And quite frankly, you're right. There are some bad cops. There's no question. My perspective on that is that we can't allow that to happen. Okay, we can't. We have to weed that out, and we do a good job here. And it's easier in a place like mine, where you only have 30 officers to keep track of. I can't imagine what Chief Craig, or now retired Chief Craig, had to go through with 2,500 officers. Right.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of delegation to other people to try and make sure that the right things are happening. So that's a very tough situation. But for me, we have a command staff that watches things very closely. And we have a lot of accountability. So we've had body cams before they were popular. We were researching pre-Ferguson, because I mean, let's be frank, no one even understood what a body cam was until Ferguson came out, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So we were already a year into testing them before that incident ever happened. So we've had body cams for a long time. We've had in-car cameras. Our use of force reporting is very, very thorough. It goes through many different stages of review. So we have a lot of accountability pieces, and we don't rely just on, it's kind of like President Reagan and the Russians, right? He used to say, trust, but confirm. So we trust our people, but we have mechanisms to confirm things too. So our command officers are required to spot check video. So every body cam will have a command officer every month go through and just randomly pick 5 different incidents and make sure that the person used the body cam correctly. Same thing with the in-car cameras. So we've got checks and balances to make sure that the accountability pieces are there.
That's good.
And that's I think the way that you have to operate. The other piece is, there's a lot of things about that people are talking about reform, right? Police reform. One of the best things you could do for a chief is to get the legislatures to make arbitrators randomly picked. Because what happens now in the labor arbitration is the arbitration group will send 3 names. Labor will pick one, management will pick one, and if they can't agree, they'll give them another set until they agree on somebody. Well, arbitrators want to work, right? That's how they make money. So they're always in there to make a kind of a compromise. Well, when you're talking about weeding out bad officers, because that's where this started.
Right.
If the chief fires an officer for what he feels is misconduct that is grave enough to lose their job, an arbiter can force them to take him back. Now, if we're really serious about making sure that we weed out the bad apples and keep them out, then we need to change the way arbitrators are picked. It needs to be random. If a case goes to arbitration, someone else outside of management or labor for that conflict needs to pick who the arbiter is. And then you just live with it. Okay? That way they don't have to worry about making a compromise so that they won't be, pegged as a management arbiter or a labor arbiter, and no one wants to pick them because, they go one side or the other. That way they can make an independent judgment on what that really means, whether the termination was warranted or not. And then if the chief has to take that back, it's a little easier to swallow.
Yeah, that's a very good, interesting, that you say that, and that opened up a lot of people's eyes too, on that is more than just, this is the way to fix it. So many different ways, and it's a step above. Like you were saying, hey, let's do it this way, and leave it to let them pick. And I like that, man. That's a very inspiring idea. Is racial sensitivity, cultural diversity training something that the officers have to go through?
It is, and so we talk a lot about what the trainings are, but I think we need to lay kind of a foundation for what that means, because you send somebody to training, even if you send them to training repeatedly, if the expectation is not put within the culture of the organization that what you're being taught at training needs to be delivered, then you can train all day long and nothing changes. Nothing gets better, nothing improves. And every organization should be looking to improve all the time.
Right.
I mean, we're humans, we make mistakes, we're not perfect, but we need to try and make sure that every time we do something, at minimum, we're not doing anybody any worse than before they called us, right?
Right.
So, that training piece is very important. The follow-up to that training piece, I think, is even more important. And so one of the things that we talk about all the time is how we treat people inside the organization and outside the organization. Because obviously, if you're not treating people right within your own house, you can't go out to somebody else and say, you need to get your house in order. That's just not going to work out. Nope. So we talk about those things all the time. We talk about treating people with dignity and respect as much as we possibly can, given the circumstances. Now, sometimes the circumstances are that something violent's going on. We don't have the time or the safety to be able to do some of the things that we can do when something non-violent is going on. So we talk about those things like de-escalation, right? That's one of the things that kind of drives me a little kooky when people talk about, well, the officer didn't de-escalate that person. Well, number one, a person has to be susceptible to de-escalation to be de-escalated. Okay, it's not something that the officer carries on his belt and can. It's not like the de-escalation powder where you can throw it at him and say, okay, now you're de-escalated. De-escalation really is a result. It's not a method, because there's many methods to de-escalation. De-escalation is the result. So we talk about trying to figure out people's triggers, being more mentally aware of what, where people are on the spectrum of mental health, using tactical patience, time and space. All those things are techniques that hopefully lead to de-escalation, because that's the goal, is to de-escalate, right?
Right.
It's not part of it. It is it. That's where we want to get to. So I think we confuse the two or use them simultaneously or interchangeably when they really shouldn't be.
Okay. All right. I think, I was watching something, it was on one of the cop shows, and it caught my interest, and I wanted to ask you about it, but he was trying to de-escalate the police officer. But when he got there, and a lot of people feel that cops are, how can I say, they have to be authoritative, but he was a little too aggressive, right? Cops that's over aggressive, is that something that's taught, or is that something that they just fear? Is it fear that they feel like this person may have something, regardless of race, may have something they can shoot me or harm me. What's the thought process of why a lot of cops, not all, but a lot of cops are so aggressive when it comes to just a traffic stop? If somebody say maybe they had a bad day, if somebody say, well, I don't feel like doing this, and the cop go completely bonkers. What's your side to that? I mean, how would you look at that? Because me looking at it, I thought it was too aggressive.
Right. So there's a lot of aspects to that question, and I think each situation kind of evolves on its own. So I'll separate I think what the two main things to think about for this question. One is that everybody takes their cues from different things, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone's perspective is a little bit different. So some officers may seem like they're more aggressive, or maybe indeed are more aggressive based on what their impression of what is about to happen or what the potential for danger is. So I'm not exactly sure what the situation was in the instance that you watched, mm-hmm. but sometimes it's easier to be a little harder and back off than start soft and move forward. So depending on the situation, the officer may choose to tactically do something more aggressive on the onset in the hopes that he can back off of that.
Well, he didn't like being filmed. When the cop came, the guy had his phone out.
Yeah.
And the cop made the cop mad. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, the guy was saying, well, I'm doing it for my safety. And the cop he just went from like this level all the way to the top level, which made the guy respond, in a negative way. So
and I'll throw this to you as well. Sometimes, and again, I'm going to go back to cops being just people, right? Doing kind of a strange job, if you will.
Yeah.
But you don't know what that officer just did 10 minutes ago or what they just left. So that officer may have just affected that traffic stop and the person started filming them, but they may have just left a suicide. They may have just left domestic violence where, a woman or a child or something has just been abused. They may have just left something, that caused them some trauma. Because the problem with most everything that we deal with is that, and the people we normally deal with is that everything is based on trauma. I mean, if you look at the world around us right now, I mean, there is so much going on.
Yes.
So many things that are hard, right? And not easily to deal with. And quite frankly, a lot of people become callous to things that are traumatic, so they deal with it poorly, right? They don't work their way through that. And cops are just like that too. It's been, in recent years, better, still not where it should be, but we don't really pay much attention as a profession to ourselves, our mental health. Because I can tell you, a police officer in a busy department like ours will see more in a year than most people will see in a lifetime. Yeah. And all those things are mostly traumatic. I mean, no one calls us because the sun's shining and they want to give us a cup of coffee, right? They're always calling us on the worst day of their life, basically, or when something bad has happened to them. Correct. That's when they call the police. And so, all those repetitive traumas over and over and over again, I think after a certain period of time, if you're not paying attention, you're going to get people who might become a little overly aggressive or even way over aggressive. So we need to pay attention to those things, right? We need to have wellness programs. We need to keep track and pay attention when people's behavior starts to change. Not after it's changed a lot, but if Bobby Smith comes to work every day and this is what he does and he seems okay, and then all of a sudden Bobby Smith comes to work just in the nick of time. Bobby Smith's reports aren't quite as good. Mm-hmm. He's not smiling as much. What's going on with Bobby? We need to pay attention to those things. Because before, and I will tell you, when I came on, and I know that's ancient history, but the first few runs that I went on that were semi-traumatic, they kind of bothered me a little bit. And so I went to a sergeant and said, hey, this is this is kind of weird. I'm thinking about this after work. You know what he told me? Be tougher than your life is. That was the advice. Be tougher than your life is, kid.
Yeah.
That's bad.
That's a rough, that's, woof.
Yeah, that's not a good way to go about it. So we do some different things.
Basically just deal with it.
Yeah. So a lot of guys will, and you can't go home and share these kinds of things with your wife or your husband. It's not fair to them to put them through it. So people start to compartmentalize things, right? You start to push it down and bury it, but you're not going to bury it forever. So
that's true.
We try and pay attention to those things.
And I think mental health goes across the board. I mean, everybody get a touch of it every now and again, right? I can be stressed out over something at work, or one employees told me to do something, they didn't do it right, or you know what I mean? So many different things, and you can actually bring that home, and you say, I'm gonna leave it at work. I'm gonna leave that at work. When I come home, it's just home. But certain things you see here, and I can only imagine the things you guys see on a daily basis, and here, not just here, but see on a daily basis. So
I can tell you that the home life for a lot of guys is really bad. And as funny as it sounds, a lot of police departments have what they call the second wives club.
Wow.
So it's all the wives on the remarry from the first one that didn't work out, and mostly because of stuff that happened on the job, right?
Wow.
So yeah.
So there's a lot of trauma. They was saying, I believe it was you who was telling me that it's really hard on marriages as far as being a police officer, probably vice versa, whether it be a woman or a man, just a police officer, period.
Well, I firmly believe that being a police officer's wife is harder than being a police officer.
Yeah.
Because I leave the house and I go do my job, right? I go out, and not so much anymore, right? Because I mostly drive this desk. But,
right.
When I was out working the street and working undercover and doing those things and responding to SWAT runs, my wife was at home. And when I walked out the door, there's always that thought that I may not come back.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would live with that. That's got to be an immensely tough thing for a person to do, day in and day out, over and over and over again. I mean, you want to talk about trauma? Man.
We're going to have this one last question, and after this, just have you to just say what you want to say as far as to the city of Ypsilanti, whether it come to racial relations or period, which I'll have planned for whatever you want to say. The next question is, do you feel that this police force has a good relationship with the people of this city? Is there anything you would like to see for this city? Anything you would change to improve upon?
Wow.
I gave you a loaded one at the end.
Yeah, man. I mean, again, we could do a whole show just on that question. I love the city of Ypsilanti. I think we talked about it when we met originally. I've been in and out of this city since I was 18 years old. I've got 2 degrees from Eastern Michigan. I love Ypsilanti. One of the things that I would like to see is that we break down some of the barriers that we still have. And I think as a community, I think that we talk a lot about inclusion and stuff like that. But I think sometimes we're so busy talking about it that we're not doing enough about it. So I think there's still certain sections of the city that, are kind of in their own silos, if you will. So I would like to see some of that kind of be reduced and come together, because we do have a wonderful, vibrant downtown, depot town, cross street section of town. We got a wonderful university in town. I mean, Mayor Richardson often says this is the best kept secret in Southeast Michigan. Mm-hmm. And she's probably right. This is a wonderful community. But we've got some significant problems and significant issues that we need to start to address. And some of them drive crime, but they don't have anything to do with the police department.
Right.
So, we often talk about what drives crime. Excuse me. Unemployment, lack of opportunity, lack of education, right? So we have the highest dropout rate in the county. We have the lowest median income in the county. All those things drive crime. So we need to start looking outside of the what are the police department doing to reduce crime? Well, we're doing everything we can to try and reduce crime, but we have to look at some root causes as well. And we really need to work on those kinds of things,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, and the other piece is I'm glad that COVID is on the downswing.
Oh, yeah.
Had a whole year of not really going out and making contact with the public, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the things that we like to do, the neighborhood meetings that we go to, all the other non-law enforcement contacts we like to have with the public that actually try and establish those trust pieces because we get to talk to each other, not under a stressful period.
Mm-hmm.
We're really looking forward to doing more of that. So that those are some of the things I think. I mean, that's just kind of scratching the surface. I could go on and on and on.
Oh yeah.
But
and one of the things, again, man, I just really want to thank you for coming on. I know you had a busy day today. I had just got off work, so
yeah,
I'm like, I'm trying to get back. I'm trying to get back. I'm like, let me hurry up and get back. We got an interview. And but no, I really appreciate you taking the time out. But at this time, is there anything that that I didn't ask that you want to address as far as to the Ypsilanti community?
Yeah, so just a few things if I can. I'll try not to take up too much time. I think you're limited to like 30 minutes, right? So.
Oh, no. No, take your time.
All right. So just a few things. The city council has really blessed us this year with some additions to the police department. So we're going to have a social worker working right here at the police department to try and help us with what I call aftercare issues mostly. So the police come and they try and fix a problem, right? Normally within 15, 20 minutes, but it's not a permanent fix. Right. And some of those things basically really aren't police things to fix. If I had to estimate, probably only 20% of the things that we do actually have to do with crime, right? The rest of them are other services that we provide, right? Neighbor troubles, mental health runs, issues like that. We're hoping that we can get that social worker here and try and marry the social work piece to the police piece, not necessarily as a response to mental health runs, because we're only hiring one, and it would be an unbelievably tasking job to try and get that one person all the mental health runs we go to. So that's not the purpose of it. The purpose is really to try and get those services to people to try and help them solve their long-term issue, as opposed to us just putting a Band-Aid on the problem today. So we're very fortunate. We've already posted that job. We've got, probably, 8 or 9 applications already. It's only been posted for a few days. So we're looking to put that into effect very soon, hopefully by the end of July-ish, maybe, if we're lucky. I may be a little over optimistic on that one, but so that's one piece. We're going to expand the hours of the lobby because right now we lock the lobby at 5:00 because there's no one in the building that can monitor the lobby. They're all doing other things. So we've added a records person that will be working afternoons. So there'll be extended lobby hours Monday through Friday and some weekend hours as well. So there'll be some added availability to the police building. And they also gave us 3 officers.
Okay.
So we're hoping to maybe hire them soon. As you know, and it's been all over the news, recruitment for police officers is at an all-time low for a myriad of reasons. And we're not one of those agencies that's willing to relax their standards to fill the spots. So we want to make sure we're going to get the right people in here to do the job the right way. So we're going to be very intentional about that, but we have those 3 spots that will become available to us in the budget in July. And so with that, we're actually developing a community policing unit. Okay. And so there will be some engagement pieces to that, but it's really going to be a unit that's going to be designed to take care of specific issues, right? So we have a problem area in town. For instance, a party store or a gas station or something that seems to be a magnet for problems, right? So
Right.
we're going to concentrate on that problem. This unit will be free enough to not have to go from call to call to be able to address those issues. So we're very excited about that starting up here pretty soon as well. So a lot of things going on at the police department. We're always looking to try and, move the needle one step forward and, try and make the city as safe as we possibly can.
All right. Hey, look like y'all moving. At least trying to put things in place to make things better. And I think that's pretty much a done deal. It's a lot of places not even doing that. So I definitely applaud you and your department for what you're trying to do, what you're trying to implement in the city of Ypsilanti. And again, I appreciate you for coming on, my friend. And I would definitely we would talk again as always. But
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. It's been fun.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. See ya.